Thanks so much for coming on the show, Ed.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. I guess what I want to start off with, just a simple but straightforward question. You are a former heavyweight boxer, so I think one thing that would be interesting for people to hear is, what are some lessons from the boxing ring that you've carried with you into your everyday life?
You know, fighting is a really miserable thing, and I wish people really understood that. There's this really weird point where you're not doing it because it's cool, and you're not doing it because you make money. You're stuck in this weird middle,
Mm.
and being able to work through that and really fall in love with a process, not an outcome, that is a really big lesson. I mean, like I don't know if I could come up with any bigger lesson than that. I mean, there are a few. I mean, I try to talk about a lot of the things that I experienced and learned in fighting, but I'll tell you this, man. Like you learn that it doesn't really matter if you're in pain. It doesn't really matter if you got rent due or something like that. You have to pull your entire being and focus it on the opponent in front of you. Otherwise, it's wasted time because you'll just get hurt and lose. You'd be better off not doing it. But if you accept that this is what you want to do, then that's just part of the game. You got to stay focused, and you have to approach it with this focus. If you have that focus, life is going to be very good for you. If you don't, you know, boxing has got a great negative feedback mechanism. You don't make the same mistake twice, and you definitely don't make it a third time. You won't survive.
Yeah.
So that seriousness of approach is something that it's just you can't get it really anywhere else. I think if there aren't other places, yes, there are other places where you can develop a disciplined approach. But I don't think there's anywhere outside of fighting sports where you can maybe like special forces training, where you pay a very real visceral price for making a mistake, and that gives you a really new respect for humans as well.
Right. I mean, there's a couple of things there. You talked about the process. I was reading. What's the book? The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. The Mark Manson book, like the airport book everyone has around. Yeah. And one of the points in there, it's like a pop psychology book. One of the points in there was, life is always going to be hard, or, for whatever reason, like, people are upset because they're single. People are upset because they're in a relationship. People have money problems because they don't have any money. People have money problems when they have too much money. And the idea is like it's always going to be a struggle. So just like choosing to really devote yourself to something. It's like the Greek process of like eudaimonia, like being fulfilled. It's not fun, fucking jumping rope in the gym all the time. Yeah.
And I wish people understood that life is, I think one of the greatest mistakes we've made in this generation is that we think life is about feeling good. Right. Life is about avoiding pain, right? No, that is not life. Like think about most of society. Or not most of society, most of our time on this planet. It was not spent in air conditioning with food immediately at the ready and
sitting in these comfortable chairs.
Yeah, like this is a very new thing, and we are not designed for it,
No. Yeah. You're one. I mean, it's Mark Manson's point was like, pick your heart.
You're right.
Whatever you're gonna do, it's gonna be fucking difficult. Like,
if it's worthwhile, it will be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think boxing is such a good example because it's like, it hurts all the time. You're constantly pushing your body to physical limits. The other thing, you alluded to before is that there's that instant feedback loop. And it's like you don't want to make the same mistake twice because you could get very seriously injured. But a lot of people today, in my opinion anyway, whatever that's worth. Sort of, we don't like to learn from our mistakes. People go out, get hammered, do drugs, whatever, do something stupid,
Yep.
and then what's the solution? Is like hair of the dog, start drinking again. People work on jobs they hate, or they stay in relationships that they shouldn't be staying in. And it's sort of like cognitive dissonance reduction. You're waiting in line outside the Apple store at 2:00 in the morning, whatever, and you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and you're like, I can't get out of line. I already waited 2 hours. It's like, no,
Well,
get the fuck out of line if you don't want to be there.
Right, and here's my thought process is it goes towards this choose your heart or whatever. Anything worth doing is going to be unpleasant. I would even argue that unpleasantness is a feature, not a bug, and that's what really weeds out a lot of people from wanting it. Because I really believe that, like, if you, let's say there was like this genie and he showed up and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna give you everything you want. All you got to do is starve, suffer, and deal with a bunch of people dying. Maybe you lose your leg or something, but you got to go through this for 7 years. Let's say 7 years, right? So you have to put up with immense pain, struggle, and you still got to work for it. But I'm gonna make it easy. I'm gonna make it easier. You won't have to work as hard, but you're gonna get it. I still think that pain and that misery, it's gonna turn a lot of people off. I mean, we live in the instant gratification era. And I think one of the best things that happened timing-wise, I had no control over, is being born a millennial, and not a younger millennial, an older one, because I know the old world, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
We're the last generation of children who couldn't look things up immediately, and
you
didn't
straddle
have
the
cell
two.
phones.
Yeah.
And we had to take risk, and things weren't quick. If you missed something, you missed it. I think about now, like I talk about Game of Thrones a lot in this regard. There'll never be another Game of Thrones, for better or worse, because no one's trying to sit and wait every week. Like shows can't do that. I mean, some of them try, but they just can't, because we've gotten so used to things coming quick, things coming easy, and that it's not good for your ethic and the way you approach things. One of the great things about fighting is there's just no way to become good quickly. I mean, even if you're super talented, you're still gonna go out there and put in a lot of amateur fights to hone it, because you still fighting is so many things at once that even a true great talent is just athletic. He still got to go out there and calm his mind down, train his mind to react to things. I guess there's two different things: his neurosystem to react to things, keep his temperament calm, be able to move under pressure, train his body to exert itself at a very high level over a long period of time. All of those things that's hard and long, and it's not fun. I mean, I hated training. Training. I like the result of training, and I like losing my mind and like the patterns and seeing myself improve. But I found things to love about it, because when you look if you look at the way fighting is set up, I'm gonna train for 40 to 50 hours a week. I mean, and that's not an exaggeration. Okay, and what am I doing it for? For a fight that, if I do my job, shouldn't last more than 20, maybe 30 minutes. It's hard, man. You don't see the results. Every day is miserable. You hate, and dude, I didn't even have to go to the dieting part. I was a heavyweight, so I don't even know what that would be like. That would probably be just as miserable, if not more miserable.
It's not glamorous. It's not it's not like you watch the movies Rocky or Creed or whatever, and people think or nothing is glamorous though. No one who's really successful at what they do lives nearly as much of a glamorous life as one would think, because the truth is, people who produce something cool, something unique, or who are doing something cool and unique, bust their asses for it. Some people are luckier than others. Some people start life on third base, but at the end of the day, like, you got you got to grind, and it's about. I mean, you said this, like. It's about having a sense of purpose. It's not about instant gratification. It's not about just, someone had in their bio the other day, the only pain I want in my life is champagne. That's ridiculous.
I've never heard that before.
No, it's funny, but like, no. I fundamentally disagree with that, even as a joke, because, like, you need pain. I want to be in pain, like, in order, not as a masochist, but like in order to be advancing whatever I'm working on, like that sense of fulfillment of being in like a flow state, of being just like working towards something, building something.
You know what's up? But there's no way. That's the thing. This is why I like competition, and you'll notice that I think one of the things. I wish there was another word for them, but there's the left. One of the things that is very big now in that line of thinking is eliminating these demarcations of competition, whether it be body positivity or tax the rich. All these ways.
Equality of outcome. Yeah, they want equality of outcome,
not equality of opportunity. Yeah. Right. And I think a lot of that does come down to wanting to avoid pain. Like it's very hard for the average person to imagine. I can't imagine. And I guess technically I have more money than the average person. I can't imagine what it's like to have $1 million or $1 billion. But I know what it's like to work for money. So I'd never be like, let me go take that guy's money and tax him. Like, nah, as I look at it, I have the complete opposite reaction. I'm like, wow, if you're able to make $1 billion and give all these people jobs, maybe we should just leave you alone. Like, you won. No taxes for you. That's your reward. That's my thought, right?
Yeah.
And I have the same reaction to like ideas around body positivity, because aside from it not being good for you, it's ugly. And I think that there's something very primal in us. We appreciate beauty. It's very mathematical what makes something beautiful.
You mean like morally or physically? Like it's.
I mean both.
Aesthetically. Yeah.
I mean absolutely both. But if we want to talk like most practical, the aesthetic beauty of a thing, we really. But you see this if you look at the architecture that survived. From like the 15th and 16th century, the Romantic period, and that architecture, and Victorian, it's beautiful. We love the way things look. It's not just about physical beauty. Modernity has taken all of that away, and now we're trying to take it away from the body. The ones who resist, because humans aren't going to change. Look, I'm still going to walk around, 14, 15% body fat, even less if I can help it, and still be jacked and work out. I would never the dad bod. What I couldn't imagine that, but they push that idea because that's easy. That's what it is. It's easy.
And well, they also, I think the idea is that the people who promulgate these ideas are they don't just want it for themselves. They want it's like I want everyone to change. It's like asking the rest of society to change how they think or how they feel to accommodate an extreme minority. Particularly on the body positivity thing, it's like I'm not wrong for being obese. The rest of society is wrong for making me feel bad for being obese. It's like no, but one of the I was talking with Zuby. He's a rapper.
Yeah, I know Zuby.
Yeah, I was talking with Zuby the other day. On the podcast. That episode's not out yet. And one of the things he wrote this book on like weightlifting. And one of the things I sort of went off about or went on a little tangent about was that it's not that like a lot of people's problems in life could be solved if they just went to the fucking gym. Make your bed.
So true.
Make your bed in the morning and go to the gym. You don't need gender reassignment surgery. You You probably don't need, to take all kinds of pills for depression. You probably don't need to, ask the rest of society to bend over backwards to fit your beauty standards. You need to take care of yourself and, tend to your own garden. Take care of what's in your space. It's a profoundly selfish and narcissistic thing to do, to ask the rest of the world to change, what the benchmark is, so that you can feel good. As you said earlier, it's not about feeling good. You shouldn't feel good. I've been overweight. A couple weeks ago, I gained 5 or 10 pounds because I was drinking and I was eating shit. I was eating a lot of hamburgers, pizza, whatever. And then, I go to the gym 5 days a week. But I was like, oh wow, like I don't feel good. I don't I don't feel great. I'm gonna start doing a lot more cardio. I'm gonna clean up my diet. Then you're not gonna believe this, right? Yeah. Lo and behold, I started feeling better. Like, what a concept,
You know what's crazy, man? Look, I tell people all the time, if you want to change or improve your life, the very first thing you should start doing is going to the gym.
100%.
Because a lot of people don't have, or I would say most people don't have experience watching something happen over the long term. Certainly not in the modern era. It's not even a thing anymore. So when you go to the gym and you watch your body change, you see what's possible with applied effort over time if you're consistent, right?
That's a good point. That's an excellent point.
And not only do you see it, other people can see and react to it, so it starts changing your mind. Like I think the last, battalion of hope or bastion of hope are our athletes, because they fundamentally, without even thinking about it, it's like innate almost. If there was a way to put something in you that wasn't there before and call it innate, ingrained. It's ingrained in them the value of consistency, which is just sustained effort over time, and
great point.
Emphasis on the time part. And if you do that, a lot of things can change.
Absolutely. It's it's a philosophy for investing. All these people wanting to do these get rich quick schemes. Or
the get rich quick schemes only work on the lazy. Like, I'm convinced of it. There's a great song a while ago by this British group called The Streets, and it was called Honest John, and the chorus goes, "You can't con an honest John, and honest John is hard to con." And they break down like why in the lyrics, and pretty much what it comes down to is it's very hard to take advantage of truly honest people. Whenever someone,
what do you mean?
So whenever someone is operating from a true sense of altruism or a true sense of goodness, as we'll call it, which is loosely defined as not an emphasis on self-interest. The other person is first, or contributions to their surroundings or neighborhood or environment is first. Those people are hard to take advantage of because they're not trying to get anything. Like you don't have any leverage to lead them. You know what I mean? But when someone is trying to get over, when they're trying to quickly gain something, those are easy marks. They're easy targets. Greed is what makes almost every single person fall into a Ponzi scheme or con artistry. It's not the people who it's no one is invested in the latest Ponzi scheme who's about saving orphans or some shit. Like, they're or going out and giving money to the homeless because their minds just don't work that way.
I guess honesty and greed can coexist, though. You can be greedy and honest, and you can be honest about the fact that you are greedy. Like, you could just tell everyone, I don't care about anything but making money.
But think about what's going to happen when you do that. Well, for starters, you're going to repel a lot of people you could work with. So it's not in your best interest to do that way.
It's like a Patrick Bateman sociopath kind of. No, you're right.
Yeah.
So the guys the real con men, bullshit artists, are always like, they end up entrapping themselves because they go for the shiny. Because they're all, yeah. I understand what you're saying. It seems they almost like sell themselves a little bit on the bullshit too. Like they
Oh, you
maybe
have to.
they know what, yeah,
You
yeah,
look. Hey, I have an even deeper kind of belief about this. I think the most effective con people, they don't see themselves as bad. I think it would be
yeah.
very hard
That's
for them
I
to do the
read,
job.
man. Yeah, the greatest con, and I've written about this. The greatest con you can pull is to convince yourself that you're not a con man.
Yeah, if you do that, then you're gonna operate. I was trying to explain this to somebody, and young people, whatever they're young. I mean, that's what it is, right?
That's me.
I was trying to explain. I was said that a person who has good intentions is almost always going to do the most damage, or at least more damage than someone who is operating. And this is a weird kind of paradox, right? Because we just talked about how greed makes you more susceptible to being conned and hustled. But there's another end to that, and I think this stuff must exist along a spectrum. Because if you have really good intentions, you can justify a lot of bad shit. Like, if you think it's, and we see this, we actually see this modernly today. I really believe the people who think that the First Amendment in the United States is bad idea. I really believe they're operating from a position of what these words are being said, or people are inciting violence or bigotry or whatever through their words. The problem is that's so short-sighted that you have to be, you almost have to have good intentions in place of intelligence to think that's a good idea.
You're preaching to the choir here, Ed. The first column I wrote for Quillette was called "Noble Intentions, Counterproductive Results," and it, among other things, looked at approaches to metropolitan governance in cities across America. And like you look at cities with high crime, low literacy, high poverty rates in America, and a lot of them, or some of them anyway, the cities that we're looking at have been run by Democrats for like the last 50 years. Why is it that year in and year out, people's lives aren't getting better, but they keep voting in the same people? It's like the intention. You want to help people. You want to lift people out of poverty. That's a nice idea. If you want to help people, the short answer is
hurt them.
That's the thing. Social welfare, the cycles of dependence, the whole thing. It's like it comes from a good place. I don't want to see, guys on the street corner not able to afford rent. I don't want to see guys dropping out of high school, getting into crime, whatever. But if you really want to help people, you can't just keep them like supplicant.
Yeah.
It's an extreme way of looking at it, but you know.
I don't. It's not extreme though. It's all it is it's looking more than one order of effect ahead, and people in general aren't intelligent enough to do that. So here's a great example. I often argue back with people who talk about raising the minimum wage. I'm like, do you understand when you raise that, you're cutting off a section of people who would work or who could work and are worth that much, but now they're not worth that much, and the employer doesn't deem it worthwhile to make up the difference in what effectively would be a subsidy. So by raising the unemployment rate or unemployment wage, you over time contribute to fewer people working, and that's just a second order condition that no one, certainly not, at least not the proponents of raising the minimum wage, think of.
Yes.
And I go, counterintuitively, if you really cared, because this is second order thinking and people are bad at that, if you really cared, you'd push for the abolition of the abolishment of the minimum wage, and you and just let skill and bidding wars sort it out. And it might hurt at first, but that is the only way people could be guaranteed a wage if everyone operated like a free agent. And if you didn't have the skill, you were out the market. You were out the labor market.
I think, look, I agree with the spirit of what you're saying. No, I don't know enough about the federal minimum wage requirements, and then based, it's been different in different cities in America. But in general, like, I agree with the spirit of what you're saying. Is like, in the short term, you'll be called mean and cruel.
Yes.
You'll probably be called racist, or you'll be called something. You'll be called a lot of names, right? But if you really want to help people, like, it's not about, getting the credit for introducing this massive new, social welfare policy or tax hike or whatever. Like, take the mean approach, take the austerity approach, and be called mean, and then again, magically, wait a little bit of time and people will be lifted out of poverty.
Dude, check it out. And we don't even have to take this idea and apply it to policy. We can just look at it from an interpersonal relationship standpoint.
Yeah.
If you notice someone is gaining weight, sometimes, there's no nice way to say, look, brother, you're getting a little fat. But you have to say it. Otherwise, in the short term, they'll feel better. In the long term, you're quite literally putting their health at risk. It's the same with an intervention. And we can actually like identify with that idea a little more easily. An intervention. If you see your homies drinking a lot all of a sudden, you gotta go, look, man, you've become a bit of a drunk. And there's we're worried about you drinking, whatever. No, you got to keep it real and 100 and get right to the point. I tell my girl this all the time in her line of work, that there's a good reason and the real reason, and a lot of times we give the good reason when we're trying to be nice. Like if I notice my girl is gaining weight, I say, hey, for your health, you should lose some weight. That's a good reason. But the real reason is I want to like looking at you when you're naked. Like, that's the real reason. And the real reason, when you give the real reason, you cut off all other avenues of counter argument. Because they either have to go, yeah, you're right, or I don't care. But they can't come up with goes like, oh, I'm healthy though. Look at my blood work. I don't give a shit. That's not the real reason I was saying, kind of thing.
How does this apply to the policy approach?
Oh no! What I was saying, I was taking the general idea and just putting it somewhere else, so we don't have to apply it to like policy. But no, general,
I mean this idea of real reason versus good reason. Like, what would be the real reason that I don't know, you?
Oh, okay. So like the real reason, but the real reason
you cut off some benefit program.
Okay, cut off some benefit program. All right. So a good reason we don't do that, or they tell us, is we need to help these people, right?
Yeah.
The real reason is these people represent 13% of the vote.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but no one's gonna say that. But we make a joke about it every year, And I'm really surprised. That's how all the politicians, no matter what side they're on, are all in collusion together. Because look. If I was running, I'd go, look, man, you've been pimping black people forever. Like, that's all I'd say. I don't care who you are. That's what I'd say. But we only show up when you need us. But no one wants to call that. I'm just being silly, though, in that regard. But the idea still stands, though. The good reason is that, and people will eat up the good reason if it benefits them. If you tell them the real reason, I bet there'd be some kickback. Maybe not as much as we expect, but certainly not as much compliance with certain ideas. And we see this all. We just saw this with everything regarding the pandemic, and I have no idea what the real motive of the pandemic was. And I'm not a super conspiracy bro, but I've gone back and forth, thought about this, put my ass on the line on both sides on social media, just thinking out loud, and gathering thoughts. But what has become clear to me is that there is whatever the real reason is. The good one they tell us is to stop the spreading of the virus and keep people out the hospital and all that good stuff.
You mean the lockdowns, not
the lockdowns, pandemic.
Yeah.
That right. I'm not saying that, yeah, obviously, the pandemic was a real thing and everything. Was dangerous.
I think so.
You have to specify that these days, man.
Yeah.
But a lot of the lockdowns and mandates, there's the good reason and the real one. And
Right.
and I can't. If we're following the real reason, then we should be tracking and moving right along with data. You know what just happened? I thought this was hilarious. Philadelphia tried to reinstate the mask mandate. I live in Pennsylvania, so so Philadelphia reinstated the mask mandate, and 4 days later they dropped it. Now you can't tell me that it's dropped because we got a new bit of evidence. I think what happened is enough people weren't. It was just too hard to get people to comply and listen, and then the behavior changed, and so they had to drop it. But if the real reason was that people were getting sick. And so let's see how dangerous that is, because imagine if it was like a real thing, right? People really were getting sick. And
You mean recently?
yeah, recently.
Yeah.
Imagine if that's what was happening, but they had to backtrack because no one was listening. Well, they ruined the credibility by being heavy on emphasis when they didn't have to be, and not giving real reasons when they should have. So now
Sure.
no one trusts, to the point where they can't even hold their own line. We haven't seen that anywhere else, where they were like, hey, 4 more days, a 4-day mask mandate, and then boom, it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think on the question of lockdowns, I live in Australia. I wasn't in the United States.
No kidding. You don't have an
yeah.
accent. I thought you were American.
I am. I'm calling you from New York. I grew up in America, but I've been in Australia for a couple of years, and I'm just back visiting family.
So I'm real curious.
Yeah.
So what was portrayed here to the rest of the world was like the cops was beating everybody's ass down in Australia, and it was crazy. What was it like that? I mean, like, what was it really like?
No. It was nothing like that. That certainly was not my experience, and to the very best of my knowledge, I'm a journalist, so I think I'm rather abreast of what's going on. A lot of the bullshit that you saw in the news about COVID concentration camps and like tanks rolling through the streets and like really dystopian shit is utterly false. We locked down from April, May, June. By the way, the Australian people overwhelmingly supported the lockdowns. This was not, you talk about democracy, this was something they wanted.
Yes.
And they voted for. And so continuously, and the public
No
approval
kidding.
ratings was really high. And it was not at any point authoritarian in the sense that you were going to get shot for walking outside of your house, right?
Did you see some of these videos that they were showing out? And that's crazy to me because like the idea is like, here's some video evidence. This must be a thing that's happening, but that's not what.
I don't have a dog in the. Of course, I support liberal Western democracy. I'm a free market capitalist. I don't like the closures of businesses, all this stuff. But look, man, we ran a bunch of coverage on this, on the myth of Australia's COVID concentration camps. You saw a lot of garbage coming out of people like Tim Pool. It was just flatly inaccurate.
It was just false.
And so, or look, you can prove anything that you want to prove, assembling the right statistics. And so we're the army is called in because there's a shortage of police officers. I don't remember what the specifics were. That happened, but they weren't like going door to door. China style, and like wearing hazmat suits and locking people up. I personally, so the other thing to understand is that you don't have to agree with it or don't agree with it or not agree with it, but it worked. We have way, way, way less deaths than the United States. In Australia, I think now it's only like 6,000 or something in total throughout the last 2.5 years. Um, I'll have to double check that statistic. But I was locked down April, May, June of 2020. And then from June of 2020 to June of 2021, my life was essentially normal.
So what is being spread out and put out in the other, well, pretty much on social media, right? That's not an accurate representation of
Look,
anything
I'm sure
going on.
there's so many sources I couldn't even begin to like. We'd have to go. No sweeping generalizations. I can't say everything that you saw was bullshit. Some of these videos are probably real. The real footage happened. There were protests. There was like.
You know what this reminds me of?
But look, it also depends where you were.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Melbourne is statistically the most locked down city in the world. I personally hate Dan Andrews, who's the premier of Melbourne, and hate's a strong word. I wouldn't want to drink a beer with him. I'll tell you that though. It looks like he's a weirdo. Melbourne was the most locked down city in the world. It was grey and dreary, and people were unhappy there. I never went to Melbourne. The other thing in Australia is that the states themselves had closed borders. So imagine you live in Pennsylvania. You can't go to Michigan. You can't go to New York, Connecticut, whatever. There was no. There were roadblocks with the army, whatever. And so they contained and got rid of it quickly. The other important part I want to get across about the pandemic, because everyone's talking about this now, is that hindsight is 2020. Don't underestimate the incompetence of politicians. Not because they're incompetent of they're so stupid. It's like they were just figuring it out, man. It's like being in a boxing match. You get hit in the face and you learn. It's like being in your first live boxing. You've never been in a boxing match before. So
you're figuring things
out
on the fly.
How the fuck are we supposed to know how to handle a pandemic, a global pandemic? I mean, you go back, it's hard for people to remember this, but you go back to March of 2020. You start seeing this stuff on the news. Where I went to college at Princeton, kids were outside in the courtyard. I was in Australia at this time, but kids were outside in the courtyards drinking, partying. They were super excited to have a 2-week break off of school.
Right.
We all thought this is going to be 10 days is great, man. I'm going to go home. I'm going to fucking watch Netflix and, have lots of sex with my girlfriend. It's going to be so fun. It's a vacation, right?
And then
more time passes. We're like, all right. Oh, it'll just be a month, and then they'll get it under control. Oh, it'll just be 6 months. Like, the politicians and the policymakers and the public health officials were running around scrambling to make, to do what they could. I'm not COVID conspiracy.
I'm not. I was just saying I'm not a conspiracy.
No, and I don't think you are. But a lot of people have this question or have these ideas that there's some like evil, nefarious intention to lock everyone up and come into like a Hitlerian style regime. I don't think that the intent that there's this grand plan or plandemic or whatever. Like it happened and we scrambled to figure out how to deal with it to the best of my understanding in the United States and in Australia at least the best we could. There were no good answers.
Yeah, I think if you said something a little while back that I wanted to address, and I think it's a really good point, that you can assemble evidence to support your conclusion, whatever your conclusion is. You can assemble a bunch of, or as I like to say, you can convince yourself of anything if you ignore any evidence to the contrary. Yes. And one of the things I have to constantly, and it's like an internal battle, like not just against what I see, but like an internal battle. I have to remember, like I see things that show up.
Yeah.
And I go, everyone says there is, like they try to put a plan behind a thing, and I'm like, but that doesn't. But to what end is what I always make sure I ask myself, and I don't have any of the the type of journalistic resources or reach you'd have. But I do have, thank goodness, a mind that tries to think 2 and 3 orders ahead and go, why? Like just asking that, and not being attached to whatever the answer is. But if it fits and supports certain things, I go, okay, I get it. And that, and how we got to this conversation initially, right? When here in Philadelphia, there was the idea of a 4-day mask mandate, and then it's dropped again. My brain goes, why? And the most likely answer is when you say incompetence. When you say incompetence, I think that's that's probably a more accurate view of the political of politicians, because they're people just like us, and I don't know how the Parliament of Australia is composed, but the House here in the United States is mostly lawyers, which I think is really weird, or people with a law background. So it's not like Portugal, for example, where I was in March 2020 when everything happened. We were living in Portugal. They had a very different approach, but they have a very intellectually diverse team in their government. So I thought that was really interesting.
Think about this, Ed. I worked in government. I worked for a congressman. Think about this. What kind of person goes off and decides that they want to work in government for the rest of their life? It's such a boring job. I couldn't think of anything worse than sitting around, in any level of working in a DMV, working at the fucking, post office, the United States Post Office, working in Congress, working for a state legislature. It is, it's necessary to keep the country running, but not necessarily. I think they're not smart people, because the smart people go off and do something more interesting. And more fun.
There's a joke I've heard circulated that all the people not smart enough to go to med school go to law school, which is
probably true.
Which is a huge gulf in ability. But yeah, I always wondered that, what will motivate someone to want to be a career politician? I can understand
that idea. Yeah, there's not even. There was no such thing as a career politician until very recently in history. I mean, I like the idea of ancient Greece even. I think it's ancient Greece. I studied modern history, not ancient history. But you would go, you would serve your post. You were like a member of the public. You would serve your post, and then you would step down and go back to being a blacksmith or a fucking poet or whatever the hell you were doing.
Which is a great way to represent, the personal interest. But when you have
a career politician, what, were you just gonna sit around drinking stale fucking coffee, printed documents all day? Hey, look, great, thank you to the nice, good politicians that exist, but a lot of them are just a bunch of fucking teenagers bumbling around, fucking things up, and we can't forget the fact that I have respect for it, because they're doing jobs that no one else wants to do. Eric Adams is the mayor of New York. He gets a lot of shit. I don't personally like him. I don't agree with many of his policies, and I think New York is not doing great under his leadership. But I will say, why was he elected? Because no one wants to be mayor of New York. Who would want that job?
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you highlight something that I think is really important that a lot of people forget. That these are not overly bright. I'm not even gonna go as far as to call them stupid, because I'm sure they're not.
Some of them are stupid. Some of them aren't. I mean, there's no monolith.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, some of these mistakes that we go. I mean, there's real life consequences for people's lives, but I don't think they come from a nefarious place. I think they come from a place of trying to figure things out, not really having all the answers.
Yeah. Best intentions with low intelligence or average intelligence tends to lead to some pretty bad points, which goes bad outcomes, which goes full circle to kind of what I was saying about when you have great intentions, but other things are lacking, and you just move maybe with those good intentions. You can do quite a lot of damage, I think.
You can, and I think the issue with with politicians, one thing is that when you are in the business of public policy, your work affects the lives of other people. You know, how many lanes of traffic you put on the highway affects how quickly
Yeah.
people can get to work, and then how many hours they can work. Blah 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 blah. Like it affects other people's lives. So I'm not saying these people are stupid, and I'm also not discounting the plight of small businesses are shut down. You can't pay your rent. You can't pay your mortgage. That sucks. And I'm not saying we'll just forgive the politician, forgive them because they were just figuring out. All I'm saying is that the intentions of something like lockdowns or of introducing bike lanes in New York.
I'm just laughing because they did the thing here too.
The bike lane. They take a lane out of traffic. It's such a pain in the ass. But it's like it's not this nefarious thing. I want to make you late to work. I want to keep you locked in your room. It's like they tried something and they like maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Anyway, we can move past this, but
it's been a great conversation so far. I just want to let you know, I'm having a ball, man.
No, it's. I think that we shouldn't discount the incompetence of politicians is all. Ed, what does Stoicism mean to you?
It means getting in between the stimulus and the response.
Okay, break that
down. So I always tell people it's not about controlling your emotions because that's really, in my opinion, at least, impossible. Sure. You feel angry, you feel frustrated, or happy, or sad. That is a natural reaction. That's part of being human. You can't shut that off. But you do have 100% control of what you do with it and how you respond to it.
Yeah.
So Stoicism to me is the system of conditioning your responses to your emotions. And that's, I guess, the most general way to put it. If we want to go one layer deeper, it's conditioning your responses to where those responses do not impede your progress in life.
Okay.
So a lot of people, when they get angry, tend to do things that when they're not angry, they're like, oh shit, that was a problem. Or even worse, one of the things I had to figure out the way I grew up is, just because somebody says something wild to you, an uncalculated response can get you into a lot of trouble because now you got to deal with a fight with a person who doesn't give a shit. Think about the people in the road rage incidents we have here. At least 2 or 3 times a year, someone on the news, and it always makes national news. A road rage incident ends in murder, right?
Yeah.
But and think about what leads to a road rage incident is someone does something in another car, and you don't know why they. This is most of them. I'm not talking about the people that are blatantly thumb up the finger to somebody, but they do something, and you don't know their intention. All you know is how it made you feel, and you react to that feeling by honking a horn, chasing them, making them feel intimidated. So now they're like, what the hell is going on? So now they're reacting all freaked out. And their response is either going to be to do something wild, like speed off and put everyone else in danger, or stop and try and square up with you and see if you'll get out. It's insanity what happens. Like I'm convinced that nothing good happens when you lose control of emotions. That's not to say be emotionless. I never ever promote that. I think emotions are a rich part of life. Without emotions, all your memories are just data points that mean nothing, right? It's the difference between a sketch, a real life sketch, and an impressionist painting. Like your emotions add something that makes it worthwhile to remember and experience in this life. But if you let them be the driver, they're supposed to be in the passenger. They're supposed to be the passenger, I guess. Even better, I'll even take that analogy and say they're supposed to be the car, but they are not supposed to be the driver. And I think a lot of people make mistakes when they let the emotions sit in the driver's seat. Okay? So, Stoicism is getting the emotions out the driver's seat. It's not, to me, I think my definition somewhat disagrees with the classical idea, but I'm not sure. But I do know that for me personally, I've always defined it and operated as if my emotions don't matter.
Right.
Because they don't. That's not to say, and when I say they don't matter, they matter to me, and perhaps they matter to someone who cares about me. But in the grand scheme of things, my emotions are insignificant. What matters is what I do in the world. And if it's like I used to have an old joke. I used to tell guys. I say, marrying while you're marrying out of love is the same as killing somebody out of anger. One day you might be out of love or out of anger. You got to look back and go, oh shit, I'm stuck. I'm still in prison, right? And that's a joke mostly. I do not believe in marrying just pure love. You should look at their family and everything else. Do your research and everything. But that's what it is to me. Just a control of your emotional reactions.
That's a good way of looking at things. What about, the chief emotion you seem to be describing though is anger, right? Some guy does something to you, and I've heard you talk about in other podcasts or YouTube videos or whatever. Part of what you learned growing up was you couldn't just, fly off the handle because you end up getting shot or stabbed or whatever.
Yeah, it could go badly.
And the other guy, and you point out the example of the road rage thing. You got no fucking idea what kind of day this person has had.
And what they got...
The wife could have just left them. Their dog could have just died. They could have just gotten fired. Their co-worker could have just gotten a slightly larger raise. You have no idea. Everyone's, fighting their own battles, going through their own shit. And the example you used was you step on the wrong guy's pair of shoes. You fucking bump. I was on the subway the other day. You bump into 10 people, right? 9 out of those 10 people, no problem. And you bump into the one guy who's looking for a fight.
The fuck's your problem? And you can respond one of two ways. You can be like, the fuck's your problem back? Or you can be like, yo, my bad, man.
Yeah. How hard is that, too?
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what's cool? You know what's cool about this brand of Stoicism I practice? It makes you more empathetic to people, and I think that's where the real difference.
Rather than just saying "fuck you," you're angry. You're no longer my friend. It's like maybe someone that had a bad day. You cut people a little more slack.
It makes you so much more aware of the fact that people are not as strong as you. They are not practiced as much. And this is a nice analogy to kind of boxing. When I get in the ring with somebody to spar, I generally know within 10 seconds, maybe 20, their level of ability.
Right.
Now it's up to me to decide what we're going to do with that. If their level of ability is equal to mine, that means I need to fight hard, but I'm not trying to kill them. Right? Yeah. If their level of ability is superior to mine, I give myself the kind of green light to go all out because I shouldn't have an issue here, and I need to do that to stay up. But if their level of ability is inferior to mine, then it's my responsibility as the better, more controlled fighter to not kill this guy. I need to use this to teach. And if you look at all your interactions with people as teaching lessons, and I really think they are, then when you start to practice my brand of Stoicism, you have to. It's automatic. You start to see every little thing that happens is a way to improve the world.
Yeah.
And that's a weird way to think of it, I think, because we don't tend to think of not swinging on somebody that most people would swing on that's making the world a better place. But in reality, what have you done? Well, you've eliminated an entire timeline where maybe that person loses their freedom and their life, or you do, and all the people that are dependent on that person or you are affected by that, and down the line. You also open up the possibility for them to calm down and reflect on it later without having to deal with a punitive action. There's so much that you can do when you control your emotions. And if that control is driven by, or at least supplemented by, a connection, responsibility, and empathy for your fellow man. I just think it's a power to change the world. That's one of the reasons why it's kind of my site. I don't have any articles on my site purely about Stoicism.
Yeah.
I probably should do that, right? Just from an SEO perspective. But because for me it's not about that. It's about this general kind of responsibility for your emotions, and I do have articles on that. And if you take that and you apply it, you can do so much more than you think just by not fucking shit up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a really good way of looking at the world. Is that you are, in your own way, making the world a little bit of a better place simply by putting a space between stimulus and reaction.
Yep.
A lot of people, it's instant, it's mechanical.
It's
muscle
back
memory.
to that instant gratification world we're in, man.
Yeah.
There's another. You know what's crazy? And I do not claim to be perfect at this. I'm always learning.
But you are self-aware, which
self-awareness is a trait. That, if you don't have self-awareness, you can only go so far, man. But once you get it, you're kind of limitless. At the very least, your limit becomes your lifespan. And but a lot of times, I've really been training myself lately because I don't like this quality in myself, so I want to remove it. Or I will respond to stuff on Facebook because of my Facebook audience. The way Facebook, the interface compared to Twitter, I pretty much don't see anything on Twitter. But despite having all the followers I have and my activity on the platform, I hardly see anything because I don't use it that way. Facebook, I have a bit more of a consumer relationship with, so I'll see a thing and go to respond. But I'm learning to just look and go, you know what? And this kind of helps. Whatever your tool is to help you do it, you should find it. But I'll look at somebody say something and I'll go, the best thing that I can do if I feel bad about this and I would like to retaliate is to remember that your thought process is going to cause you more harm than me. And just leave it be and go away. And it's worked pretty well. I had to delete something this morning. but other than that, I'm moving pretty well because... And the better I get at it, it's like a muscle. You keep working it, and pretty soon I won't even have to think about it. I'll just go, that. Oh, this is funny. Let me add some humor. That's what I like to do on social media. A lot. If you're, I don't know which platform you follow me on, but
Instagram.
So IG. So I don't put as much humor on IG yet. I just put something in my stories where I was messing with somebody on Facebook, adding humor. But
I saw that.
Oh yeah, where the guy was talking about
about being in jail.
Yeah, that thing, right? And you seen the reactions. Like I try to make people have a good time and laugh. That's a great use of the platform to have a ball, man. A lot of people want to use it to argue and fight and antagonize, and I'm just like, dude, let's have a good time. But that is getting in the middle of my reaction, which is to look at all that stuff and feel like I have to agree or disagree with it. But I really try to get in the middle of that reaction, and I go, let me make some people laugh or use it to make money. In other words, like I won't let. That's another thing that happens when you get in the middle of stimulus and response. You stop being controlled by the world. You start going, okay, I'm not going to let social media get in my head. I'm going to get in social media and get something out of it, whether it be friendships, connection, money, all kinds of things. But the average person isn't doing that.
No, they're like enslaved to the platform, sort of, just constantly scrolling and scrolling. You're not even aware. Like, I was on my phone, I think like 5 hours a day at one point during the pandemic.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, and on the iPhone, there's the screen time. It tracks in the background the screen time. Imagine that. Imagine, like, because and then you get the number of pickups too. You have 500 pickups or 200 pickups today or whatever. Like, imagine if you spent 5 hours just like in one go, but it's never in one go. It's like little hits of dopamine. What it's always scroll. Anyway, the point is if you can make social media work for you rather than subconsciously just fucking scrolling Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever all the time, that's an important thing, particularly for young people. Like I really do worry. I was worried about this before the pandemic, right? About all these teenagers, you see babies with iPads and whatnot, but all these teenagers back in my, you probably remember this, back in my day.
How old are you?
I'm 24.
Oh, woo! I'm pretty sure you're a. Are you Z?
I think I'm Gen Z. Yeah, I missed the millennial cutoff by the last millennial cutoff by a couple years, unfortunately. Yeah. So I have to wear the Gen Z badge. But you see teenager. We had AIM back in the day.
We had AIM too. I had AIM in high school.
Yeah. So, so it's not like the new generation is addicted to their phones or whatever. But I do worry about the ability of people to communicate and interact with each other in person. Now, because you see kids walking down the hallway, cafeteria, whatever, they're not socializing. They're just, likes and clicks, follows and whatever. That's a totally different thing.
A story I always tell people to illustrate how different the world is. My best friends, I have 5 really good friends, right? And I met them. I got introduced to their social circle because part of my origin story is in high school. I went to a completely different high school across town where I didn't know anybody, and it was one of the best things that happened to me. But I had to make new friends, and so one day in biology class in the 9th grade, me and this guy, we were talking about who was better at this video game. We talked trash for a little while, and then we said, let's settle it. So we went to the arcade, and the video game, I believe, was Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Yeah. It might have been just Marvel vs. Capcom 2, might not have come out yet. But we went and we settled it at the arcade. And at the arcade, there were other people playing, and there was a whole etiquette we had to observe where we showed up. We put a coin down on the dash to let people know who had next, and we were moving up. And there were social rules that you had to figure out in person that apply to the whole world because we're in person, and they're just not officially enforced, but we enforced them. We figured out on our own. So I made my best friends because of a video game. True, but it was in person that we dealt with it. We didn't go on Xbox Live or PlayStation Network. We met up in person. We got to know one another's families, things like that. And that makes a big difference. The in-person interaction is gone. We live in a rare world today. I have a girl, a friend that she's a friend now. I dated her, and I asked her how she met her latest boyfriend. She goes, "How else do you think?" I walked up to him. I'm not one of those other millennials where where everybody's on swiping and shit. And I think that's so rare. Because she's like, no, she's pretty smack in the millennial time zone. But I wonder, I couldn't imagine what the dating scene is like now if you're under. Well, you do. You're there where everybody is everyone swiping and matching that way?
I'll be honest, I don't really use the apps in Australia very much.
Man, your voice just sounded like the wares were terrible.
No. I don't need it in Australia. There's
wow. Okay, well, there you go.
There's beautiful girls everywhere, like on every street, every corner. One of the running jokes I have, people say, "Why are you in Australia?" I say, "For the weather and the women." So I'm not a big Hinge, Bumble guy in Australia, but when I came back to New York, I did re-download the apps, and there's you do the little swiping and all of this. I do it, but it almost feels like, I don't want to say cheating, but it feels like just not.
Well, you know what it is. You know what it is. Well, because that's a thing we're missing now. There is
Yeah.
something very enjoyable about meeting a new person, and
Yes.
that interaction, and that's
And then it's
gone.
either making eye contact across the bar, or you walk up to someone in a bookshop, you're both reading the same book, or like that's serendipity, that's spontaneity. Like, how'd you meet your husband? Oh, we both had the same pair of shoes, we both had the same book. Or
Right, it
whatever.
makes for a cool
That's a
story.
cool story. Yeah. Nothing wrong with the dating apps, but
No, and you
I will
what's
say
cool?
you meet people you wouldn't meet. You meet people from across town. If there's, I don't know, now there's public transit everywhere, but you can meet someone that you wouldn't otherwise
have met.
run into. I live in New York. I live in the city. Well, no, I don't live in New York. That's a lie. I live in Sydney, but I grew up in New York, and I'm in New York right now. 8 million people. Yeah, I get on the subway. I see people every day. I'm almost definitely never going to see those people again, just because of the cycle of how many people moving in and out at the same time. So it is cool that you're able to connect with people from all 5 boroughs in from different backgrounds and walks of life, and you get a little snapshot of who they are and what you do, which is, you mentioned love is not enough. That's true. You need compatibility, like
Yeah,
lifestyle preferences, but it makes it easier. But look, there's benefits to both. I personally prefer meeting people in person, but there's benefit. I don't know how we got onto this, but there's benefits.
It's a cool thing to say, man. Wherever it goes, I met my girl online 10 years ago when it was cool.
Yeah.
When it wasn't
Yeah.
cool, I mean. But
what did they have? A match?
okay, Cupid is how we met, right? But
because
check
there were
out-
websites. The original form of Tinder.
Yeah, there was no
website, right?
apps. Yep. And check it out, though, man. I always tell her, speaking of that, I go, look, man, I'm gonna fall in love with you just because I spend time around you, and like that's my brain going, oh, you have to love this person, right? But no one makes me, and by virtue of sex, right? Spending time around a person that's having sex with me, you'll eventually like feel a similar emotion to love over time. But no one can make you feel like. And that's why I tell her, you have to understand, I like you. And that's so much more important. That's such a bigger, like you can't make me like you.
Excellent
You
point.
know?
Excellent point. Yeah, there's a line from a movie. What's the movie called, Ed? Oh, you know what the movie. It's on the tip of my tongue. Oh fuck. Let me look it up. They meet once. It's with Anne Hathaway.
Talking about Anne Hathaway.
I'm getting there. The movie is called One Day, and it's about these 2 friends who, it's just sort of like a sappy rom-com, but I did think it was a good movie. It's about these 2 friends in college, and for one day a year they meet, and it goes over like 20 years of their friendship.
Oh, wow.
They like sort of hooked up in college. They didn't end up sleeping together, but like made out in college, and there's always like a romantic spark kind of, and they go in completely separate directions, and they live in different cities and walks of life. But one day every year, it's their tradition. Dexter and Emma, they meet each other, and one of the lines from the movie anyway is he's all like I don't know if he's using coconut, but he's all like coked up and drinking, and he's sort of become he's this famous like television presenter, like a Tucker Carlson type. Or not Tucker, like a Ryan Seacrest type guy, and she says, "I love you, Dex. I just don't like you anymore." No, but it's a good look because they have this beautiful friendship, and you got to hold your friends accountable. I shouldn't say this on a podcast, but the other day I went to hang out with some friends from New York. Who I hadn't seen in a couple of years. This is my first time back in America in 2.5 years.
Okay.
And one of my friends I didn't like the way he was behaving. I didn't really like what he had become, sort of. Drinking a lot, doing other things that I didn't approve of. I didn't like the lifestyle that that he was leading, and not because I didn't approve of it or I'm judging him for it.
Didn't.
I didn't think it was healthy for him.
Yeah.
And I didn't think he's my boy, he's my friend, right? And so I'm gonna say to him, I'm going to say, like, man, you know, I don't think this is good for you. I don't think this girl you're dating is particularly good for you, and I think you should check yourself a little bit. This is headed in not a good direction. Everything about what's going on here, you know, this is a downward spiral, and it can only end in one of 3 or 4 ways, none of which are particularly pleasant.
And how do you take that?
Hard. I haven't said it to him yet. I'm thinking about it, which is why I'm sitting here hesitating.
Well, let me, you know.
I think I'm going to, because if you really care about your friends, you know, you gotta hold them accountable for their shit, you know, and you have to risk. This is going to risk ending the friendship, or putting a wrench into the gears. But I'm willing to accept that risk, because I think the long-term benefits will, you know, pay off. And one day he'll thank me.
Well,
you know? Not
only that, look at it this way. And this is a very simple... once I adopted this metric and really thought it through, my choice on whether I should say something to my friends became incredibly simple. You have to think of it this way. Whenever your friends are doing something that you don't approve of, and you don't approve of it because it's like dangerous or unhealthy, or you think it's going to turn out really badly, you have to say something to them, because if you don't, well, one, that will continue with them, but two, they're going to consider you an ally, or at the very least, enabler is probably the wrong word, but it's the closest one I have. Unless you cut them off and stop hanging out, and then they'll be like, "Oh man, that guy, fuck him," because they don't understand why you left. They don't understand why you cut them off. But if you go and you sternly talk to them, you probably will lose the friendship in the short term. In the long term, if they ever get their head right, you're going to be the person that they thank. They had the balls, and they will appreciate you saying that. One of the things I always talk about with my sobriety is, and I don't hold any of my friends accountable, but I'm aware of this. I go, you know, I just wish somebody at one point sat me down and said, "Dude, your behavior last night was out of hand, or your drinking's getting out of hand." Anything. But I never got that. And I don't blame them, because most people won't do that. But after I got right, when I saw that behavior in somebody else, I made sure I pointed it out. Because at the end of the day, like, your time is finite, right? You know, and you don't want to. If you can help someone and maintain your time, I think that's a really good good kind of exchange as it goes. And the risk is small, because think of it, you're not going to be their friend anyway if they're doing that dumb shit.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, that's true. It got to the point I didn't enjoy being around this person, this behavior, and so that you're right. You either say something or you don't, but if you don't, then you're not going to want to spend time with the person in the first place. So
yeah,
it's simple math. Look, I want to be respectful of your time, man. I just have a couple more questions. Is that
Dude,
all right?
This has been a great question. I mean, I don't want you to like eat up the whole day. But the next thing I'm doing, I'm gonna rehearse my speech. I'm giving a TED talk on May 7th.
Yeah.
And,
great.
And then I'm gonna order the Dylan White Tyson Fury fight. So,
awesome. Well, can I get a few more questions in before?
Oh yeah, the fight's not main event's not scheduled till 5:30 EST.
Is Tyson Fury the Trump guy, the MAGA guy, or is that a different guy?
I don't know if he said anything. Tyson Fury's a
no. One of them is it's his personality. It's his it's not WWE. It's his like character. He's always wearing a MAGA hat, and he's like
I don't think
I don't know. I don't follow UFC. Maybe it's not Fury. You know who I was watching videos of this little Patty the Fatty. the little blonde guy. He's another UFC fighter or MMA or something. Anyway, whatever. I don't know anything about fighting, so we're not going to talk about that because I'm just going to sound like an idiot. But while we're on the subject of battering other people, when is violence justified? You're an Army veteran. You're a former heavyweight boxer. You know, some people say self-defense. You know, some guy breaks into your house, whatever. You got to protect your
Man,
wife and kids. Look, you have a better understanding of violence and the controlled use of violence in something like boxing, or in the Army, you learn all about how to combat operations. When is violence justified, Ed?
My thought process is, as the initiator of violence, is never justified. I just don't see how. We don't need it. Now, that means then if you're reacting, if you have to stop somebody from causing harm, if they have broken the treaty and they've decided that they're going to initiate violence first, then you have a responsibility to be capable of defending yourself and stopping the threat. And it's unfortunate that's why you want to talk about why one trains. Well, because there's a lot of evil people in the world, man, and they're going to take advantage of you, and they're going to hurt you if they can. They get what they want. But if you look like you're a hard target, and you are a hard target, then life is going to be a lot different. One of the cool things I think about Australia is that they've been able to achieve like no guns, right? Is that more or less accurate? That there are
yeah, I mean,
yeah. So that means so what that means though is that if somebody, I have no idea like what the street fight culture is in Australia, but I know that whatever it looks like, it doesn't escalate to gunfire, play.
Most of the time, yeah.
In the States, I gotta be careful if somebody starts talking out of their ass to me, because I'm like, okay, like I'll tell you a story. I was walking in a Best Buy a few years ago, and I walked by this dude. Dude must have been like 5'7", 5'8", maybe 150 pounds wet, and he was with his girl, and he looked at me. His girl was dressed like a bit of a hoochie, but he looked at me and was like, yo, what the fuck is you looking at? And my first thought was, this dude is like almost half of me, and he's going to talk to me like that. He's got a gun. And even if he doesn't, like, what am I going to do? Argue with this kid? But that changes the dynamic. So you got to so violence is never justified as the first initiator. Or is the initiator. First initiator is redundant.
Well, you learn the hard way living in America that it's never justified. You should never be an initiator to begin with, but also, keep your fucking head down, because, or just say, look, sorry, my bad. I didn't mean to bump into you, because you don't know if a guy is strapped. You don't know if
you don't know
anything.
It is so crazy because like there's this whole thing that floats around. An armed society is a polite society. I used to really fully believe that.
In what society?
An armed society is a polite one.
Oh, an unarmed society.
Yeah, and armed, not unarmed. My bad.
I understand. It's the same. It's mutually assured destruction.
Yeah,
everyone has
and I get it, but that premise relies on sane individuals. It relies on the human being emotionally even killed, and it just doesn't work that way, in my opinion.
Don't fuck with people. It's the message. Look, sometimes you have to fuck with. Sometimes you have to put your foot down and say, "Look, man, this isn't gonna fly." Some guy's being weird with the girl in a bar or something. You intervene. But I think the important
okay, right. So you just pointed out another one too. That if you have to stop like a kidnapping or harassment, then you might have to knock somebody out, right? But other than that,
fair enough.
Yeah,
protecting yourself at the aggression of others, and protecting those who are incapable of protecting themselves.
Yeah,
or who can't. Whatever. If I see some guy slip something in a girl's drink, you can bet your ass I'm slamming his head.
You gotta do something.
I mean, I've never seen that. I've never been in this situation, but I'll get. Yeah, I don't care if he's 7 feet tall. Like you got to do. I'll get the get the security. You got to do something. There are situations where you have to intervene. But I think the point that you're making is that don't go looking for trouble.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like, you had a bad day, something happened. Don't go looking for trouble. One piece of advice that I have in work is if you're ever unsure about an email, right? Wait 24 hours. Don't just send it. I send I send so many emails. I'm an editor at an international magazine. I email people all the fucking time. People they send criticism. When my book came out, it copped a bunch of flack, and it's like, you want to respond to the haters, or you want to maybe send whatever. Wait, see how you feel in a day. Not what's the harm, unless there's some crazy deadline, like wait. Yeah. Because oftentimes, and then if you still want to send it, great, but then you're sure that you do. Otherwise, you're going to send there kicking yourself. I'll give you an example. So this guy, I write profiles on people.
Can I pause you for just a minute?
Yeah.
Bro, I didn't know that. When you said when your book dropped, so I just went and looked you up. Man, you're like a real badass, man. Holy shit! I'm just reading your author biography. I'm sure, like on Amazon. I'm sure that, like, the regular listeners know all this, but wow, man, all these awards, and you're like I think I'm a writer, man, but you're a fucking writer, man. Like, whoa.
Yeah, I don't know. Thanks, dude. Thank you.
But yeah, I just wanted to, your memoirs got 145 reviews, man. My nonfiction ain't. I mean, it's close, but that's awesome.
Look, if I could be a race car driver, maybe I would. But this pays the bills, and I enjoy doing it. So, but thanks. No, it means a lot. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ed.
No problem.
Here's a funny story of waiting 24 hours to send an email, or in this case, physical mail. I write articles for tech companies sometimes, and someone asked me to write up this profile of this guy, and I wrote up the profile of the guy, and not to be arrogant, but this was a great profile. This was not an interesting person, and I made him look very interesting. I made him look like the fucking bee's knees. And he wrote me this nasty email because I send the profiles I write of people are generally quite celebratory. I'm not a muckraker. I don't do hit pieces on people. Maybe if one needs to be done about someone who's hurting other people, that's one thing. But I don't generally go out trying to make people look bad. I wrote this really nice, flattering article of it. It was a portrait of him, right? For this, it doesn't matter who, and it doesn't matter who I was writing it for or who I was profiling. But he sends me this nasty email. This is way too over the top and colorful, and nobody in my industry is going to like this. This is so boring. It's nobody in your industry can like it. I sent this to 5 people in your industry, and they all said it's, is super cool and interesting and fun. He's just used to writing boring ad copy all the time. And, you bring in a real writer to write something, and he's like, this is, Anyway, he had no appreciation for the flair. So, this guy is bald. He's completely bald. And he has been for a long time. You look him up on Google, he's nice, shiny head. A bit of a chrome dome situation. And I, upon getting this email to him, was very close to shipping him a bottle of Rogaine.
Wow.
With a little note that said, sorry you didn't like my article. Hopefully this helps. And sending it to him. That's ridiculous. Man. Yeah, it's funny, but it's cheeky. It's immature. It shows that I don't take feedback well because I have a public presence on the internet. He has a public presence, and so we have lots of followers and stuff. And then it's become a thing. And Scott Newman, you think what's going to happen? It's going to be like Scott Newman doesn't take feedback well, or Scott Newman can't accept when he thinks he's such a good writer, he can't accept when someone doesn't like it. The truth is, like, it would have been hilarious, and I still might do it in like 5 or 10 years. But I just decided, like, I'm not gonna look. This funny as fuck, but probably it's also mean. What if the guy's insecure about being bald? I don't know. Like,
yeah, dude.
maybe
you know
I'll do
what?
it.
My girlfriend has really helped me. Fiance, whatever. The woman in my life has really been a great example of that. I watch her do it a lot with emails, and she's not even close to volatile, but she'll write it out and then go, all right, I'm going to sit on this and come back and make sure this is polite, and then get our feedback, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I think that's good, and her sister goes, I think that's good, you might want to change that. But it really is, that's a great example of like getting in between the the emotion and the response, the stimulus and the response.
Yeah. I also would have. I think Rogaine is prescription only. I'm not sure. So
Man, dude, check it out. I'm like, I got a great article on this on my site. I'm about to put another one up. I was like losing a lot of hair. Yeah. I went and between. I had 2 hair transplants, and I used Rogaine.
I might get one. I got this widow's peak situation.
Dude,
I'm gonna get a hair transplant. Does it work?
It doesn't fuck up my fucking hair, man. It's pretty good.
It looks good.
My hairline is straight. And actually, because I wrote the article about it, and I'm like super persistent with stuff, I got Bosley. They're gonna give me another one, and they're gonna like link and profile me on their site and everything. And I'm like, oh, that's really great. Because that, continues to build the profile and the legend of Ed Latimore.
Don't they graft fucking skin off the back of your head?
Check it out, man. This technology is incredible. That's FUT. That's what they used to do. Now they use FUE. The difference is, I can't remember what FUT stands for.
They don't cut skin off the back.
They don't cut skin off anymore. They used to do that. Now they use unit extraction. They use a needle that actually goes and removes the grafts one by one, and they take it all around.
One by one. Jeez, Ed, you got millions of.
Check it out.
How long does this take?
One day. And
like
the
24 hours in a chair.
Nope.
It's like getting a tattoo. No?
7 a.m. to the first time where they took more grafts. They took 1,600 grafts and moved them. That was
so precise.
That was like 15. That was like not 15 hours. From 7 to like 5, and then the second one I went where they took 1,400, a little less. That was like 7 to 2.
Yeah,
right. But dude, it's quick, man. Because the technology is just so awesome now.
Yeah,
and the third one is just going to round out and fill in, and they, I'm really impressed by it. And dude, I'm telling you, you want to talk about one of those things like I don't say this condescendingly at all, but I just got to make sure I preface it.
Go ahead.
You're still at the age where everyone looks young. Like know, whenever you meet somebody and you guess their age, if you think they're about your age, you're generally right? Mm. At 37, when I guess someone's age, because I think they look like because I think I've maintained myself very well, they're usually your age.
Yeah.
When I think someone is my age now, when I think someone is in their 30s, they tend to be like not in their 30s. So
they tend to be up. They're like they're older. You mean?
Yeah. Because people don't work out and losing hair, and so I take care of the one I could control working out and losing hair. I just went and got it back, and it's my favorite investment. And I actually read this book a while ago, Psycho-Cybernetics, and he talks about
Psycho-Cybernetics. Who wrote it?
Maxwell something. I can't remember his name, but you probably look it right up. Yeah. But at the start he talks about some research that shows that most people, whenever there's a life change, their happiness tends to bounce back. Or like if it goes down, it tends to go back where it was, and if it goes up, it tends to come back. Like making a bunch of money, having a kid, changing jobs, things like that. The one thing that produces a permanent change, apparently, is any type of cosmetic enhancement. So if you went and got like plastic surgery, all right, permanent enhancement. Getting my hair did permanent enhancement.
You mean emotionally?
Yeah, emotionally. Like I feel like because I never look and go right. No, I look at it every day and I'm like, oh, I'm so happy I made enough money to do this. Like that's my thought process.
No, it's a good metaphor. Is like, I was reading a thing on people. They spend all this time doing shit that they don't want to like. I guess the point of the article was pay someone to clean your house. Pay someone to do if you have enough money, if you can afford it, right? Stretch a little bit, maybe order a couple less gin and tonics on the weekend and pay someone to clean your house, pay someone to do your laundry, pay someone to do the shit that you really don't fucking like doing. And now there are people who love doing laundry and people who love cooking or whatever. But if you want to cooking, actually, I think you should do yourself because then, for health. But like, the point is, when you should pay money to enhance your life in some way, in ways that that make you feel, but they give you more time to do podcasting and writing. Or if this hair thing makes you feel better, fucking hell,
dude, it makes me dude. I was on a pretty popular show earlier this week. And I'm looking at myself on YouTube, and I'm like, I look cool, right? Like I don't look like I'm losing hair and all sick. So no, dude, I highly recommend it to every guy. I'm very open about it. Like some guys are like, I don't want people to know. Like, no, fuck that. But I'll shout about it from the rooftops because it's really awesome. And I didn't think it would make that much of a difference in anything, but I know because I can see pictures that I look objectively better. Like, not even a question.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. I think, and then I don't know. I'm sitting here thinking to myself like, I don't fucking want to waste a day in the chair, but it's not wasting. It's a permanent improvement. It's this other thing is like
it's permanent. Like these hairs.
It's permanent. It's like getting a tattoo. I was in the chair for 8 hours. I have a huge wolf on my leg, the face of a wolf. It's like half realistic, half mandala, and it hurt a lot. I was in the chair for a while, but I fucking love the look of it. Dude, I look at it all the time. I'm like, this is sick.
and check it out. Here's the other thing. I want to make sure I make this clear. It's your hair graft move, so this hair grows. Like it's not just sitting there. I gotta go get a haircut.
No, it's not a toupee. It's
nope. That is my hair.
Yeah. I'm glad. I'm happy that you've taken ownership of the. I mean, it's yours. Ed, all right, let's go through. Actually, you know what? This is important. This is the last big question. And
okay, last big question.
Last big question. One thing you write a lot about is, victimhood mentality and breaking out of victimhood mentality. It's very easy and appealing for, to sort of point the figure saying the world is unfair. And a lot of, the world is unfair and it's cruel and it's indifferent. And you had it, you had it rougher than most growing up. And yet, look at what you've done. You've built this great life for yourself. So my question for you is that one thing I find to be especially cruel and unfair is to tell young people, like teenagers, particularly young black teenagers, that no matter how hard they work, what they accomplish, how much effort they put in, the system will always be stacked against them. Now it's being told to, LGBTQ kids as well. It's this, a lot of young people today they're sort of told that the world is out to get them and there's nothing they can do about it and they shouldn't even try because the system is so disproportionately stacked against them. And one of the things I really like about what you write is you acknowledge, yes, some things in the world are out of your control, some things in the world are shitty, but what are you going to do about it? Tend to your own garden, bootstrap your way up. I don't know. Talk to me a little bit about this. I mean, it's a running theme that I see in your tweets and your Instagram posts.
Yeah, man, because here's the thing, and one of the things that I realized early on is that no one's coming to save me, and I recognize that, and I know that uh, once I recognized that no one was coming to save me, then I could decide, okay, do we want to stay in this life or do we want to get a better one? But that recognition let me or allowed me to formulate ways to make it happen. I wasn't sitting around waiting for a thing to change, and I would not complain. I've never been a complainer. I never will be, and I would not just be passive in my life. It made me an active participant in my future. But it all comes from seeing initially that no one was ever going to be there for me, and I don't think that response is normal. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, that I'm a great example of a survivor's bias if you look at how things have gone my way. And people go, oh, look at what Ed has done with his life. Why don't you do the same thing? And I look back, man, because I still got some family in that area, and I see it. And I'm just like, if only it was as easy as being me. Like, but you're not going to be me. You're not going to replicate me. You're not going to replicate my reactions. But that doesn't mean you can't take my mindset. And that is the most important thing. That mindset of ownership, of owning the outcome. That's all I did. Is I know that, or I knew that, nothing was ever going to be given to me. I experienced too much lack to believe otherwise. I never got a chance to really just believe that life was all hunky-dory like kids do. And so I was confronted with reality really early. So being confronted with reality, that makes you... you ever see The Matrix? This is one of my favorite analogies, man. And that scene when Cypher's trying to go back in The Matrix. And he's like, I'm tired of this. I want food to taste like food, and stuff like that. He wants to believe the lie because the lie is really comfortable, right? It's a lot more comfortable than the truth. But I never got a chance to embrace the lie, man, and that's just where it goes. And one of the pieces of advice I give people is that you have to develop an unflinchingly close relationship with the reality of your situation. If you do that, you've got a pretty good chance of changing it. But until you get out of delusion, you don't know what to attack. You don't even know what to do. That's the real danger of that delusion, is that you never pay attention to the real enemy.
This is a great point. This is an excellent point. All right, Ed, favorite movie?
Man on Fire.
Man on Fire. Favorite book?
Oh, man. Fiction or nonfiction?
Both.
Favorite nonfiction book is A Course in Miracles, Todd with Art of Learning by Josh Waitzkin. A Course in Miracles is about forgiveness. Favorite fiction book I've read so far, I'm really digging Elmore Leonard stuff. Elmore Leonard and 310 to Yuma has been pretty good. That's a short story. Full book, probably Michael Crichton's Power at Latitudes.
Cool. Best piece of advice you've been given?
I've been given.
Yeah, not that you've told me, but you've been given.
My coach.
Any time in your life.
Oh, dude, I'll tell you, my coach, my boxing coach said to me when we were training and just, sticking to it and just being miserable, he said, good things take a while. Bad things happen quickly. Good things tend to take a while.
That's powerful and true. You be in the fucking boxing gym, being, in life, working towards your career. Good things take a while.
They really do.
All right. Well, Ed Latimore, thank you so much for coming on to 27 Roosts. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, no problem, man. No problem.